Today we're going to talk about my top 10 fantasy reads of the year. And these fantasy reads, they kind of get progressively darker as we get up into like the top, and then it gets into towards the darker echelons of things, which leans towards my first love, which is horror. Not all of these books are going to be from this year. Some of them will be new this year, and then others will not be. They're just the best fantasy that I've personally read this year. So we'll start with number 10, and that is Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas. So this book, there is currently, I think, 4 books out in the series. This is the first one in the series. It truly reminds me of the movie The Craft, which I think is why I loved it. It follows the character Anna. Her horrible aunt has kind of kept her secluded and away from people and has always taught her that magic is bad and it must be suppressed. And if people know that magic exists, like, there's people out there who will come after us and kill us and brr. And her aunt is just like a horrible old shrew. And basically when she comes of age, she wants to bind Anna's magic. But Anna ends up going to the school and making friends and finding other people who are witches. And they start meeting together and they form a coven. And then that's when it gets into the kind of like the Craft vibes. So Anna's aunt has always warned her of the dangers of magic, its twists, its knots, its deadly consequences. Now Anna counts down the days to the ceremony that will bind her magic forever, until she meets Effie and Addis. They open her eyes to a London she never knew existed, a shop that sells memories, a secret library where the librarian feeds off the words, a club where revelers lose themselves in a haze of spells. But as she is swept deeper into this world, Anna begins to wonder if her aunt was right all along. Is her magic a gift or a curse? And it is a great witchy read. If you like The Craft, you may just like this book. Next up, we have a cozy fantasy, and that is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I absolutely loved and adored this book. It has all the lovely things that is so cozy and rosy and nosy, from wonderful food descriptions to found family to magic, and just it's a lot of kindness is found in this book. And it's honestly just a very lovely read if you're looking for something that's uplifting and feel good. So Kayla has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, she hasn't had to. She and her assistant Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, has spent the last 11 years sequestered among the Empire's most precious spell books, preserving their magic for the city's elite. But when a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz save as many books as they can carry and flee to a faraway island Kayla was sure she'd never return to, her childhood home. Kayla hopes to lay low in the overgrown and rundown cottage that her late parents left her and figure out a way to survive without drawing the attention of either the Empire or the revolutionaries. Much to her dismay, in addition to a nosy and very handsome neighbor, she finds the town neglected and in a state of disrepair. The Empire, for all its magic and power, has been neglecting for years the people who depend on magical intervention to maintain healthy livestock and crops. Not only that, but the very magic that should be helping them has been creating destructive storms that have taken a toll on the island. Due to her past role at the library, Kayla feels partially responsible for this, and now she's determined to find a way to make things right by opening the island's first ever secret spell shop. Her plan comes with risks. The consequence of sharing magic with commoners is death. And as Kayla comes to make a place for herself among the kind and quirky townspeople of her former home, she realizes that in order to make a life for herself, she must learn to break down the walls she has built up so high. And it's just a lovely feel-good read. So next up we have The Last Story by Meg Schaefer. And this book was kind of described as like Narnia-esque because it follows the story of these 2 boys who go missing in the woods and they find themselves in another land, in like a magical land. And so, The Lost Story. As boys, best friends Jeremy Cox and Rafe Howell went missing in a vast West Virginia state forest, only to mysteriously reappear 6 months later with no explanation for where they'd gone or how they'd survived. 15 years after the miraculous homecoming, Rafe is a reclusive artist who still bears scars inside and out and has no memory of what happened during those months. Meanwhile, Jeremy has become a famed missing persons investigator. With his uncanny abilities, he is the one person who can help vet tech Emily Wendell find her sister, who vanished in the very same forest as Rafe and Jeremy. Jeremy alone knows the fantastical truth about the disappearances, for while the rest of the world was searching for them, the two missing boys were in a magical realm filled with impossible beauty and terrible danger. He believes it is there that they will find Emily's sister. However, Jeremy has kept Rafe in the dark since the return for his own inscrutable reasons, but the time for bearing secrets comes to an end as the quest for Emily's sister begins. The former lost boys must confront their shared past, no matter how traumatic the memories. Alongside the headstrong Emily, Rafe and Jeremy must return to the enchanted world they called home for 6 months. For only then can they get back everything and everyone they've lost. And they have lost so much. I do have standalone reviews for most of the books that I'll be talking about today, so I will put links to those down below if you want to get more of my thoughts on that. Those will be in the description of the video. Okay, next we have A Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Ames. And I must say, I was very charmed by all the swears. There's a lot of swear words in this, which I found funny in the dialogue and very cheeky. And there's also a talking cat, which I love it when there's like talking animals and stories, if it's done well. And I thought this one was done pretty well. This is like a quirky, weird, eccentric, lovely little book, but it's also dark and it has quite dark undertones. So everyone in Foss Butcher's village knows what happens when the magic workers come. They harvest human hearts to use in their spells. That's just how life in her kingdom works. But Foss, plain, clumsy, and practical as a boot, never expected anyone would want hers. Foss has such bad self-esteem in this. Like, I felt so sad for her throughout this book, but it's one of those books where, like, as she grows as a person, she finds her confidence and belief in herself. When a sorcerer snags a piece of Foss's heart without meaning to, she is furious. For once a heart is snagged, the experience is, well, unpleasant. So, Foss finds herself stomping towards the grand city to keep the sorcerer's enchanted house like a housekeeper and demands that he fixes her before she keels over and dies, or whatever happens when hearts are snagged. But the sorcerer, Sylvester, is not what she expected. Petulant, idle, and new to his powers, Sylvester has no clue how to undo the heart-taking, or how to do much of anything really apart from sulk. Foss's only friend is a talking cat, and even the house's walls themselves have moods. As Foss searches for a cure, she accidentally uncovers that there is much more to the heart-taking and to the magic workers themselves than she could have ever imagined. It is a weird, rambunctious, and emotionally charged book that is cheeky and humorous and quite a delight to read. All right, so next we have The Keeper of Lonely Spirits by E.M. Anderson. There are spirits and ghosts and strange things and found family. It takes place, a lot of it in a graveyard. You follow this guy, Peter Shaughnessy, and he's basically like goes and moves around all over the place, and he will find spirits that seem to be destructive and doing stuff to harm people, and he'll get them to move on and get out of these places where they seem to be stuck. And so after 200 years, Peter Shaughnessy is ready to die and end this cycle. But thanks to a youthful encounter with one of them folk in his native Ireland, which the Fae, he can't. Instead, he's cursed to wander eternally far from home with the ability to see ghosts and talk to plants. So immortality means Peter has lost everyone he's ever loved. And so he centers his life on the dead until his wandering brings him to Harrington, Ohio. As he searches for a vengeful spirit, Peter's drawn into the townfolk's lives, homes, and troubles. For the first time in over a century, he wants something other than death. But the people of Harrington will die someday, and he won't. As Harrington buckles under the weight of the supernatural, the ghost hunt pits Peter's well-being against that of his new friends and the man he's falling for. If he stays, he risks heartbreak. If he leaves, he risks their lives. It's just such a heartwarming, emotionally charged read, and it's got weird stuff with the Fae, and then you have him being able to talk to plants, and then also with the spirits that he can see. One of the characters, too, that he meets when he first gets there works in the graveyard with him, and her dad had recently died, and he can see the spirit of her father and how that affects her and how the spirits react when they see their loved ones, that the way that it feels. If you like kind of stories in that vein, I would highly recommend it. Okay, so after that one, we have one that is definitely not new at all, but it's new to me. And that one is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. Maybe it's one of his more under the radar books. The people I've talked to that have read it all seem to really have loved this book. Once in a kingdom called Delane, there was a king with 2 sons. And thus begins a tale of fantasy, of dark magic, the struggle for absolute power. Randall Flagg rears his ugly head. If you read the Dark Tower series or The Stand, you'll know who Randall Flagg is. He is an evil, wizardy, immortal, demon type character. I don't really know exactly what Randall Flagg is, who maybe was once human, but he's in this. And he's the king's wizard or sorcerer of sorts, and he's always whispering in the ears. And of the 2 brothers, one will give Flagg the boot and get him out of the kingdom and kick him out once he takes the throne. The other one, well, he's moldable to Flagg's machinations. So obviously Flagg wants the other one on the throne. Something happens where the brother who was good, who would have been an amazing king, gets thrown in lockup in this tower for years and years. And it's the story of what happens to the kingdom, what Randall Flagg does, and all the deaths and things that happen, and how that all works out in the end, and what happens with the brother who basically just brings ruin and awfulness to the kingdom. And Flagg's whole thing overall is he wants to just get rid of like having kings at all and just have it be like chaos and anarchy. And yeah, it's quite the read. It was absolutely fantastic. Would highly recommend if you haven't read this one and you like Stephen King's fantasy. It's definitely a dark fantasy. All right, so after that one, we have The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Perry. This was a random book that I randomly grabbed off the shelf at the library. I had no idea what it would be about. I just like stories that have to do with the fae and magic. So I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, whatever. Turned out to be an absolutely fantastic book. And I've now read 2 books by this author, and they've both been awesome. So this one, Camford, 1920. Gilded and glittering, England's secret magical academy is no place for Clover, a commoner with neither connections nor magical blood. She's there only to find a cure for her brother Matthew, one of the few survivors of a deadly fairy attack on the battlefields of World War I. When Clover catches the eye of Golden Boy Alden Lennox Fontaine and his friends, doors that were previously closed are flung wide open, and she soon finds herself enmeshed in the seductive world of the country's magical aristocrats. But the summer she spends in Alden's orbit leaves a fateful mark. Months of joyous friendships and mutual study come crashing down when experiments go awry and old secrets are unearthed. The consequences will only be truly understood many years later when it's too late. And so these experiments are all of the fairy doors after this war were closed. However, you see that this book is called The Last Fairy Door. There may just be another door. Maybe she's trying to find a way in there or to make a deal with the fairy so that she can save her brother and find out what is going on. This is an author that, at least for my 2 experiences, I've flown through the pages when I've read them and would highly recommend it if you like books that have to do with the fae. All right, so now we're getting into the top 3. Book number 3 is Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. This book, you have a Jenny Greenteeth, which is basically like a weird water fae, a goblin, and then a witch. And they all go on a journey to defeat this great evil that has come to the town that the witch lived in. All right, so let me tell you about this one. Beneath the still surface of a lake lurks a monster with needle-sharp teeth, hungry and ready to pounce. Jenny Greenteeth has never spoken to a human before, but when a witch is thrown into her lake, something makes Jenny decide she's worth saving. Temperance doesn't know why her village has suddenly turned against her, only that it has something to do with the malevolent new pastor. Though they have nothing in common, these 2 must band together on a magical quest to defeat the evil that threatens Jenny's lake and Temperance's family, as well as the very soul of Britain. And this preacher man is so much more evil than they ever even imagined. And it is a wild story. They go on this like epic journey. They go and they have to go and find like the fairy court, the king and the queen, to find some magical items that could possibly help to defeat this preacher who is this malignant evil that is super bad news bears. It is such a great and quirky and lovely story of friendship and found family. And just if you like books that have like an epic quest in it, absolutely great. Book number 2. And that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. This is a dark fantasy. It is gruesome and brutal. It's a large and in charge book. There's a lot of religiosity throughout it. And then you have all these different characters. I guess you would call them the devils. There's a vampire. There's a werewolf. There is an elf. There is a Knight Templar. There is the necromancer. And then there's this girl who is a thief that seems to be the long lost relative of this serpent throne, that they need her to go take the throne so that they can unite the two warring churches across the way. And that on the way, there are other family members that will be vying for this girl's head to try and kill her. And the people going after her will have their devils. But the cardinal and the pope have provided this girl and this monk, Brother Diaz, who are to get her to the serpent throne, with devils of their own. But are the devils really that bad? Holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city, where he is certain accommodation and grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has devils on his side. And in the beginning, I hated Brother Diaz and thought he was a super douche. But he is a character who grows and learns and becomes a much better version of himself by the end of the story. It's a roller coaster ride of a book. And now time for my number one fantasy book that I read. Okay, so this book, some might categorize it as horror. I say it's dark fantasy. It's about an effing dragon, and there are trolls in it, and there's Arthurian lore in it. I mean, it's very fantasy heavy. It's dripping with fantasy. So it does have all the elements of a horror book, but when you read a book that centers around a dragon, to me that's fantasy. So Arthur Oakes is a reader, a dreamer, and a student at Rackham College in Maine, renowned for its frosty winters, exceptional library, and beautiful buildings. But his idle and burgeoning romance with Gwen Underfoot, notice names Arthur and Gwen, is shattered when a local drug dealer and her partner corner him into one of the worst crimes he can imagine, stealing rare books from the college library. Trapped and desperate, Arthur turns to his closest friends for comfort and help. Together they dream up a wild, fantastical scheme to free Arthur from the cruel trap in which he finds himself. Wealthy, irrepressible Colin Wren suggests using the unnerving Crane journal bound in the skin of its author to summon a dragon to do their bidding. The others, brave, beautiful Allison Shiner, the battling twins, Donna and Donovan McBride, and brainy, bold Gwen, don't hesitate to join Colin in an effort to smash reality and bring a creature of the impossible into our world. But there's nothing simple about dealing with dragons, and their pact to save Arthur becomes a terrifying bargain in which the six must choose a new sacrifice for King Sorrow every year or become his next meal. This book blew my effing socks off my feet, like right out the door, out the window. I don't even know where they went. They're incinerated. They flew off so fast. It's so good. And it's funny to me too, because like my top 10 horror, my number one book was The Stand by Stephen King. And in fantasy, number one book is King Sorrow by Joe Hill. What are the chances of having like father and son for like my best books of the year? I don't know, but it happened. King Sorrow's amazing. It's huge though. It's almost, I think it's like over 900 pages. So it is a beast of a book. If you don't read books that huge, maybe you won't want to read it. Is it better than The Stand? God, because The Stand was my horror book of the year. They're like different animals, but also I really loved how in King Sorrow there's a total nod to The Dark Tower of Stephen King's books about how when they're summoning the dragon, Arthur sees this man outside. The line in the book is, the dark man fled across the snow and Arthur Oakes followed. And that's like a direct like nod to the Dark Tower series where it starts with the gunslinger. And I love that. I thought that was really cool. Let me know if you've read it, what your thoughts were. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I know not everyone's going to like the same books, but man, it was so good. Also, if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.